Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances all the to Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our evening Bhagavad Gita circle. And we will be continuing with chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, verse 34. And the chapter is entitled the Gita Summarized, and it will be given by Prabhu from ISKCON of Harrisburg. Without delay, it's all yours.
Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyabari Paschatya Deshitarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. So this evening we start with Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, which is entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, text 34. Akritim chapi bhutani kata yishanti te vyayam sambhavitasya chakriti maradan atirichate. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Both as friend and philosopher to Arjuna, Lord Krishna now gives his final judgment regarding Arjuna's refusal to fight. The Lord says, Arjuna, if you leave the battlefield before the battle even begins, people will call you a coward. And if you think that people may call you bad names, but that you will save your life by fleeing the battlefield, then my advice is that you do better to die in the battle. For a respectable man like you, ill fame is worse than death. So you should not flee for fear of your life. Better to die in the battle. That will save you from the ill fame of misusing my friendship and from losing your prestige in society. So the final judgment of the Lord was for Arjuna to die in the battle and not withdraw. Text 35. Bhaya nara uparatam mamshyate tvam maharata yesham cha tvam bahumato bodhva yashyasi laghavam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Krishna continued to give his verdict to Arjuna. Do not think that the great generals like Duryodhana, Karna, and other contemporaries will think that you have left the battlefield out of compassion for your brothers and grandfather. They will think that you have left out of fear for your life, and thus their high estimation of your personality will go to hell. Text 36. Avachya vadam shabahum vadishanti tabahita nindantas tava salmatyam tato dukataram nukim. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and will scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Krishna was astonished in the beginning at Arjuna's uncalled for plea for compassion, and he described his compassion as befitting the non-Aryans. Now, in so many words, he has proved his statements against Arjuna's so-called compassion. Text 37. Hato va prapsyasi swagam jedva va bhokshate mahim tasmad utishta konteya Yudhaya Krita Nishchaya. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Even though there was no certainty of victory for Arjuna's side, he still had to fight. For even being killed there, he could be elevated into the heavenly planets. Text 38. Shuka duke same kritva, labha labha jaya jaya, tato yudhaya yudhyasva, nevam papam avapsyasi. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing, you shall never incur sin. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Krishna now directly says that Arjuna should fight for the sake of fighting because he desires the battle. He, Krishna, desires the battle. There is no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or loss, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness. That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna is transcendental consciousness. So there is no reaction to material activities. He who acts for his own sense gratification, either in goodness or in passion, is subject to the reaction, good or bad. But he who has completely surrendered himself into the activities of Krishna consciousness, but he who has completely surrendered himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness is no longer obliged to anyone, nor is he a debtor to anyone, as one is in the ordinary course of activities. It is said, Devashi Bhutapta Nrinam Pritinam Na Kinkaro Nayam Rene Cha Rajan Sarvatman Ya Saranam Saranyam Kato Mukundam Parihritya Kartam. Anyone who has completely surrendered unto Krishna, Mukunda, giving up all other duties, is no longer a debtor, nor is he obliged to anyone, not the demigods, nor the sages, nor the people in general, nor kinsmen, nor humanity, nor forefathers. Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 5th chapter, text 41. That is the indirect hint given by Krishna to Arjuna in this verse. And the matter will be more clearly explained in the following verses. Text 39. Esha te bihita sankye buddhi yoge trimam shrinu buddha yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahashyasi. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results, O son of Prita. When you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. According to the Nirukti or the Vedic dictionary, Sankhya means that which describes things in detail, and Sankhya refers to that philosophy which describes the real nature of the soul. And yoga involves controlling the senses. Arjuna's proposal not to fight was based on sense gratification. Forgetting his prime duty, he wanted to cease fighting because he thought that by not killing his relatives and kinsmen, he would be happier than enjoying the kingdom after conquering his cousins and brothers, the sons of Dhritarashtra. In both ways, the basic principles were for sense gratification. Happiness derived from conquering them and happiness derived by seeing kinsmen alive are both on the basis of personal sense gratification, even at the sacrifice of wisdom and duty. Krishna therefore wanted to explain to Arjuna that by killing the body of his grandfather, he would not be killing the soul proper. And he explained that all individual persons, including the Lord himself, are eternal individuals. They were individuals in the past, they are individuals in the present, and they will continue to remain individuals in the future. Because all of us are individual souls eternally. We simply change our bodily dress in different manners, but actually we keep our individuality even after liberation from the bondage of material dress. An analytical study of the soul and the body has been very graphically explained by Lord Krishna. And this descriptive knowledge of the soul and the body from different angles of vision has been described here as Sankhya in terms of the Nirukti dictionary. This Sankhya has nothing to do with the Sankhya philosophy of the atheist Kapila. Long before the Kapila's Sankhya, the Sankhya philosophy was expounded in the Srimad Bhagavatam by the true Lord Kapila, the incarnation of Lord Krishna, who explained it to his mother Devahuti. It is clearly explained by him that the Purusha, or the Supreme Lord, is active and that he creates by looking over the Prakriti. This is accepted in the Vedas and in the Gita. The description in the Vedas indicates that the Lord glanced over the Prakriti or nature and impregnated it with atomic individual souls. All these individuals are working in the material world for sense gratification, and under the spell of material energy, they are thinking of being enjoyers. This mentality is dragged to the last point of liberation when the living entity wants to become one with the Lord. This is the last snare of Maya, or sense gratificatory illusion. And it is only after many, many births of such sense gratificatory activities that a great soul surrenders unto Vasudeva, Lord Krishna, thereby fulfilling the search after the ultimate truth. Arjuna has already accepted Krishna as his spiritual master by surrendering himself unto him. Sishyaste ham siddhi mam tvam prapanam. Consequently, Krishna will now tell him about the working process in Buddhi Yoga or Karma Yoga, or in other words, the practice of devotional service only for the sense gratification of the Lord. This Buddhi Yoga is clearly explained in chapter 10, verse 10, as being direct communion with the Lord, who is sitting as Paramatma in everyone's heart. But such communion does not take place without devotional service. One who is therefore situated in devotional or transcendental loving service to the Lord, or in other words, in Krishna consciousness, attains to this stage of Buddhi Yoga by the special grace of the Lord. The Lord says, therefore, that only to those who are engaged in devotional service out of transcendental love does he award the pure knowledge of devotion in love. In that way, the devotee can reach him easily in the ever blissful kingdom of God. Thus, the Buddhi Yoga mentioned in this verse is the devotional service of the Lord. And the word Sankhya mentioned herein has nothing to do with the atheistic Sankhya Yoga enunciated by the impostor Kapila. One should not therefore misunderstand that the Sankhya Yoga mentioned herein has any connection with the atheistic Sankhya, nor did that philosophy have any influence during that time, nor would Lord Krishna care to mention such godless philosophical speculations. Real Sankhya philosophy is described by Lord Kapila in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but even that Sankhya has nothing to do with the current topics. Here, Sankhya means analytical description of the body and the soul. Lord Krishna made an analytical description of the soul just to bring Arjuna to the point of Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, Lord Krishna's Sankhya and Lord Kapila's Sankhya, as described in the Bhagavatam, are one and the same. They are all Bhakti Yoga. Lord Krishna said, therefore, that only the less intelligent class of men make a distinction between Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Sankhya Yoga Pitak Bala Pravanti Na Pandita in the Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore understand that Buddhi Yoga means to work in Krishna consciousness, in the full bliss of knowledge of devotional service. One who works for the satisfaction of the Lord only, however difficult such work may be, is working under the principles of Buddhi Yoga and finds himself always in transcendental bliss. By such transcendental engagement, one achieves all transcendental understanding automatically by the grace of the Lord, and thus his liberation is complete in itself. Without making extraneous endeavors to acquire knowledge, extraneous endeavors to acquire knowledge. There is much difference between work in Krishna consciousness and work for fruited results, especially in the matter of sense gratification for achieving results in terms of family or material happiness. Buddhi Yoga is therefore the transcendental quality of the work that we perform. The transcendental quality of the work that we perform. Hare Krishna. Okay. All right. Yeah, we have 2 minutes to go, but I think we have enough time to finish this. So text 40. Neha Bikrama Nashosti Prataya Payuna Navijate Swapam Apyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhyayat. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed. Otherwise, the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at a loss, even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%. Whereas in material activity, without 100% success, there is no profit. Ajamil performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. There is a nice verse in this connection in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 17. Tyaktva swadharman charanam bhujam hare, bhajan apafvo tapate tato yadi, yatra kwa babadram abhud amushyakim, ko varta apto bhajatam swadharmata. If someone gives up his occupational duties and works in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on account of not completing his work, what loss is there on his part? And what can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Or as the Christians say, what profiteth a man if he gain the whole world, yet suffer the loss of his eternal soul? Material activities and their results end with the body. But work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness, even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being, either in the family of a great cultured Brahmana or in a rich aristocratic family that will give one a further chance for elevation. That is a unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So we'll
Thank
stop
you.
here.
It's such a nice reading.
It's just mercy, Bruce, mercy.
Yeah, it's been really nice just reading and hearing my realization is because we have you and Mother Gita and Balabhadra Prabhu reading, and because all three of you really go slow and take your time, it's such a nice digestion in the mind. So thank you for having it come across so nicely. Would like to ask devotees if we have about 9 minutes for discussion. Any questions? Yes, Mother Gita, please, Mother.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances, August.
Accept mine.
Thank you
Mercy,
Prabhu, for
Prabhupada.
the reading. In verse number 37, Krishna is telling Arjuna, get up with determination and fight. So, Prabhuji, can you please explain how can a devotee, in other words, figure out if they have that kind of determination or not? In other words, what are the symptoms of someone who has that kind of determination?
So, as you said in 37, Krishna is telling Arjuna, therefore get up with determination and fight. Determination is one of the things that in the Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami says that we should be about. We are fortunate enough to have association in this particular society of fixed staff devotees and also gurus. We have several examples where a devotee is determined to serve Krishna in Krishna consciousness despite whatever is going on with his body or her body. There are many devotees, some current, some showed us. And the first example is Srila Prabhupada himself. When he was coming from India on the Jaladuta, a cargo ship, not a passenger ship, a cargo ship, he suffered 2 heart attacks. He still went on. He came and suffered so many situations as he was warned about. When he was in India, the place is cold, yet he was determined to go. One of the things that would help us jumpstart our determination is take the instructions of the spiritual master seriously, especially if you've been given a particular service to do, like Srila Prabhupada was given service to spread Krishna consciousness in the English language in the West by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. A big job indeed, obviously, but done in pleasure, in all pleasure, to serve the world and please Krishna's senses. We have instructions that come to us also in smaller than Srila Prabhupada's, but still, he is a great example of determination. And so when we read about his life, we read about what he went through and how he wound up being able to fulfill his spiritual master's service request. It gives us inspiration. And that inspiration, we can learn, okay, so Srila Prabhupada has showed us that many things that would have seemed impossible with Krishna is possible. My Guru Maharaj used to put it this way, on our own, what can we do? But when we're backed up by Guru and Krishna, what can we not do? This is how he thinks. So that is at the back of our mind. If it's at the back of our minds, then as long as we are serving and we are just tools, literally. Servants is like tools. They tell you you do, and we are willing to put that kind of mentality into the service and say that, all right, Krishna appreciates everything that we do in Krishna consciousness. And one of the texts also says, whatever we put in, even 1%, and we leave the body just doing 1%, we can start from 2% next time. We don't go to 0 and start. So all of these are things that we should tell our minds. There is everything to gain and nothing to lose in serving in Bhakti Yoga. So then there's instruction that goes to our minds and says, well, we have nothing to lose. Besides Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, Your yoga with intelligence. Buddhi is also intelligence. It means same. That is the opportunity that we get to leave the material world, and we all know the kind of suffering we go to the material world from disease and old age and all those things that bother us. So for us, when we are given the opportunity, when we're given the service, we should see it as a great opportunity, not only to satisfy Krishna, but also be able to earn the mercy of Krishna and get out of this material world. So the determination really is on the one hand, but what's underneath it is instructing the mind that this is the opportunity. It's a huge opportunity. When it comes to devotional service, material things is one thing, but devotional service, every service is an opportunity. Every service devotional is an opportunity to get spiritual credits and to satisfy Guru and Krishna. Therefore, I am better off doing it than not doing it. And not only doing it, I'm better off doing it with great attention to the work that I do. And that way, in the end, we will earn the mercy of Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Krishna's mercy, Guru's mercy.
There is a question from Vrinda. It's an anonymous. Yes, Vrinda, please, can you post the question, Vrinda? She said that she has a question from an anonymous person. And
Okay.
Actually, the person shared the question with me, so if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead. Then we'll take that question after that.
Okay, the question is, Hare Krishna. When the soul transitions from one body to another, can it still be in Krishna conscious mode? Or is it that there is need of being in body to continue in the gaining progress in the Krishna consciousness?
You said when the soul goes from one body to another. When the soul goes from one body to another, it means if it goes to another physical body, then it means that the process of devotional service is a devotee, right? The process of devotional service is continuing. The person has put in some effort, but the mercy is not complete. Therefore, they are getting an opportunity to continue. This is also discussed in one of the texts. So, in the situation of a devotee, not going back to Godhead because of some things that were not taken seriously in the process, or it was just a lackluster, not that great a determination, or sometimes one of the things that really can stop us is offenses. Be careful about that. That one's a game stopper. But the work that we've done, as has been said already, there's no loss or diminution. It's not diminished and it's not lost. We get an opportunity to come back. Now, when the person takes another body, again, it was said here that that person will take a human body. There's a great chance for that, human body. Krishna, what he does is on one side, or one way of doing this is, Krishna wants us to grow. So whatever in the previous life that were the impediments or the roadblocks, he puts us in a situation where we can deal with the roadblocks better. If it was a situation of poverty and we spent so much time trying to make money and did not take our bhakti seriously, but still we had belief in Krishna and we were chanting, but we didn't take things so seriously, we get a chance to come back, and the money situation more than likely will be dealt with by being put in a family that has the money already there, and therefore you can, in fact, and then Krishna arranges for you to meet devotees again or connect with Krishna consciousness again. That's always done for us. That's just, the mercy that Krishna shows. And so then that impediment, the material impediment, is kind of dealt with. And again, we still have our free choice though. We have our free choice. We can take the process seriously, or we can backtrack again. I don't hope that on anyone. We want to go forward, someone keep going. So there is adjustment that's made. And then the situation that challenges, now you're in a different situation that there's some help, but then all the same, you have to deal with those challenges again. So for a devotee, going from one physical body to another human physical body to another human physical body. It means they didn't quite complete what they had to do to earn enough mercy from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but always adjustments are made in the next life to move us forward. Again, Krishna doesn't interfere with our free choice, so we can go on doing whatever we want to do. But again, we are put in an environment that would ensure us moving forward and getting a chance to go back to Godhead. That Krishna does. Hare Krishna. I don't know. I went around it and said, I don't know whether it answered the question.
Yeah, Vrinda, if you can ask that anonymous person, if that helped, then that would, then we know that it got answered. We'll go to Dr. Brett's question while we wait for Vrinda's response from the
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Accept
Please
my
accept my
humble
humble
obeisance.
Srila Prabhupada. Prabhuji, I really liked where we started this in text 35. Krishna is telling Arjuna, do not think of your contemporaries. Don't think that they will think you're leaving the battlefield out of compassion for your brothers and grandfather. They will think that you have left out of fear for your life.
Yeah.
So Prabhuji, I was reflecting on that and thinking about, it's such a, a position of the false ego. Arjun's thinking, well, I could leave now and maybe everyone will think, oh, I'm just, being compassionate. But Krishna is telling him, no, they're going to, see, your position as a Kshatriya, and as you leave the battle, they're going to know, this is out of fear because he just doesn't want to fight. It's not so much compassion. But it's so much, to have that realization that, others aren't going to be thinking what you think they're thinking. How can we grow in our self-awareness to be able to discern, how to properly act in the moment, given who our association is? In Arjun's case, this is all moving so quickly. We're reading so slowly, but Arjun, this is only a few hours, and he had to, move from the mindset of, wanting to run out of compassion to just wanting, to fight. So how can we, within our communication, slow down and have that awareness that, there will be those externalities of what people think of us and what we perceive them to think of us? How can we, properly, as I said, discern our choices or our words in communication to not so much, leave a stain on the other person, as we see here, this is, a false ego position where Arjun thinks, well, maybe they'll think I'm leaving out of compassion.
Well, in the case of Arjun, we'll answer the question generally for us, but in the case of Arjun, Krishna put him in that situation of bewilderment through Yoga Maya. Krishna, Arjun is a pure devotee. So him, we put him in the category of false ego. Krishna used him through Yoga Maya to have him put himself in that situation of feeling that it was better to leave. And then Krishna then got an opportunity to talk about duty, what your duty is in Krishna consciousness. So that's on the one part. Now, what to do in different situations? Just, to discern properly what to do. We have help in many ways. One of the ways is we have help from the scriptures, hearing and applying what we hear. We're applying what we hear sometimes in situations, and if you're careful, you actually will see that the connections that come up when you hear more and more and more and you start living by it. Certain situations can trigger a response from what you've learned in Krishna consciousness. Now, how does that happen? Well, two things. One, the more you hear, the more you get to know not only the scriptures, what it says, but from senior devotees to and others, personal experiences and how they dealt with certain situations. So that will be there. You can have that bank there. And then it's a question of Krishna helping you to remember a situation that connects to what you're going through so that you can act properly and act right. Now, how do you know Krishna is going to help you? Well, you should be in prayer all of the time. We request these kind of things. Krishna use our intelligence. Sometimes, and I'll just, not even sometimes, I'll quote one particular sannyasi that openly, when we saw him, he came to Washington, D.C. I'll describe and then tell you who he was. He was preaching. There were other sannyasis, all disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and my Guru Maharaj was there also, Bhakti Maharaj. But he was preaching. He was a senior in terms of when he got initiated, when he came to ISKCON. He finished preaching, and then the devotee started asking the questions, which you would expect. Every time he was asked a question, he would appeal to Srila Prabhupada first by taking a short prayer of Srila Prabhupada's pranams. Quickly through, you see his lips moving, and then he would answer the question. This is Tamal Krishna Goswami, TKJ. He was doing that. Because the advantage of doing that is then instead of answering the question, the person who is asked the question now becomes the channel through which the higher or Srila Prabhupada answers the question through. In other words, you get the help from the parampara like that to answer the question. So that's one way. And another ways too. So you can chant the Hare Krishna mantra quickly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Before you even open your mouth. The idea is making yourself a humble servant for that particular service of answering the question. It seems subtle because in our material life, we just, we answer a question and we think the best way we can and to answer the question. But to answer the question intelligently as a devotee, you have to appeal for help by chanting the Krishna mantra or quickly connecting with your spiritual master and then going on there. Much better use of your intelligence will, in fact, that's exactly what's going to happen if you appeal for help. I personally, I don't like to give myself examples, but when the devotees are asking questions, I have my spiritual master's picture. You can't see it. It's on the other side, but I look at him, and I pray before I turn around and say anything. Because I'd rather have it come through him, from him through me to you, to anyone that's answering questions. I never say that I know the answers to everything. No. But when you look to them and quickly in your mind, you're appealing for help, Srila Prabhupada, if you're not initiated, or if you're initiated, your spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada, or Lord Gauranga for that matter, and then turn, you will be put in a situation where you can give good answers that will just put your false ego on the side and you won't have to worry about that. So appeal for help if you want to answer questions intelligently. Appeal for help to the system, the transcendental system. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. I think you summed it up very nicely with, it's not our fickle intelligence to use. We have to be grounded and know that it's, Krishna's guiding us and acting through us. And we have to just remind ourselves, and through these, practical applications, as you said. So, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Nice question, Dr. Brad. Like Mother
very
Gita,
good question.
I always say you ask the best reflective questions that is so helpful to many, at least to me. I know it's very, very helpful.
Krishna's mercy.
Hare Krishna. Mother Gita, you're here. I'm so glad I can see you. Can you add a little bit more if you want to? It's up to you.
You have given a perfect answer. There's nothing more to be added. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank all
And
glories to Srila Prabhupada and my Guru. Yeah.
Interestingly, you mentioned Tamal Krishna Maharaj because yesterday was his 20th disappearance here. Interestingly that you mentioned his name. Yesterday was his 20th year. He left the planet 20 years ago in 2002.
Oh, okay.
It was nice that you mentioned, you shared a little bit about him. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. I wanted to just bring up the question from this anonymous person that Brinda was asking. If you put it in the chat, and I think kind of get. I think I know what this person is trying to ask. So what he's saying is when the soul transitions from one body to another body, before the soul goes into another body, that transitioning period, he said, can that soul still be in a Krishna conscious mode in the transitional period, or is it that needs to be where the soul has to wait, or is it that there is a need of being in the body to continue in the gaining process in the Krishna consciousness, in the soul state, not taking another body, that transitional period?
I understand what, okay, so there are, and this is a little subtle, okay? So you're talking about a devotee and in a transition stage. Now, Krishna has said that when a person is leaving the body, when a person is leaving a body and he leaves thinking of Krishna, where does he go? He goes to Krishna. Yeah. So when a person leaves the body and the situation is such that they have to come back, see, the system is set up in such a way, it's so intricate. The way in which that devotee leaves the body, if he is not to come back, will be dealt with. Krishna consciousness. They think of Krishna, they will go to Krishna, they will remember Krishna. When a person is to return to continue in Krishna consciousness, we talked about that person, it means that there is some things that has not been completed yet. Now, at the time they're leaving the body, that can be quite, I don't want to use the word tricky, but it's done in such a way that, yes, the person will in fact leave the body and be in a situation where they'll be brought back. But, and I will ask for Mother Gita's comment too after this, because what's coming to me is, I'm looking at one part of the Shastra that says that if you leave the body thinking about Krishna, you go to Krishna Loka. There is no cheating here. If a person is not going to go, I don't think, I'm just, again, that's what I'm saying, give me help here. I have to check more about what happens in that situation. But I do not think that they will have the proper understanding and remembrance of Krishna in that situation, based on what the Shastra says. The Shastra says, you think of me, you come to me. Maharaj Bharat was thinking about a deer, he got a deer's body. It's a high elevated as he was, okay? So that's what I'm thinking, that in that situation, the person has not succeeded, and therefore his or her connection with Krishna is not as strong. It's not as strong. And therefore, things are set up in such a way, it will be set up in such a way that the death won't be in such a way that they'll remember Krishna so much and they'll have to continue in the Krishna consciousness. That's what I think happens in, because Krishna says, if you leave thinking of me and you have me in mind the whole time, then of course you are coming to me. A lot depends on how many spiritual credits also that the person has accumulated. That's also very important. If a person doesn't connect with Krishna much and connects with other things that are material, at the time of death, what is more prevalent in that person's mind during his life is what they're going to remember. Okay, and if it's not Krishna, because that person was not taking Krishna consciousness as seriously as they could have, then it comes to that point that I was mentioning, that there isn't much of a chance that they will remember Krishna as well as they should in order to go back. Let's set it in another way. But I'd like Mother Gita also to comment about it, because it's an interesting one, person's return when they are devotee.
You said it all, Prabhu.
You think? Oh, okay. All right.
Actually, the subtle body, goes on to the next body along with the super soul and the soul. The soul and subtle body, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego, goes on to the next body. So whatever consciousness was there before goes on to the next body, and that's why Sri Prabhupada says we pick up from where we left off in the previous life. So we just continue. So that's all.
Okay. That's the way it is. Yeah. But Bhakti Maharaj, thank you very much for putting it on this. Bhakti Maharaj told me that the predominant consciousness during lifetime, when we're living our life, is also going to be quite prevalent in our minds at the time of death. And Bhad Maharaj is a perfect example. He spent so much time concentrating on the deer, so he died thinking of the deer, and that's why he got put in the deer body. But his Krishna consciousness in terms of what he put in and his administrative work, I mean, in many ways, we can't even compare the kind of life, but he had that much still. When he gave up everything in the administration and went to the forest, that he could be 100% concentrating on bhakti the way he was going to do it in the forest. Unfortunately, he got his attention on the deer and neglected his devotional service. And so then the deer became a prevalent thoughts in his mind, and he died thinking about the deer. He was Krishna conscious. You can't argue that before that time, before the deer, he was Krishna conscious, but still he wound up in the deer's body. So we got to be careful at all times to keep, Rupa Goswami tells us, always think of Krishna, never forget Krishna. So that when it comes to time of death, we still will be thinking about Krishna. Then we can go back. Hare Krishna.
Dear Krishna, I think also added a nice point, and he's asking
Sure.
a question. Point he's saying is also, I think, as long as when this material world, a soul needs a body to do anything, including devotion. A soul needs a body to execute Krishna consciousness. Is that the right understanding? He's asking.
The answer is yes. Yeah. Yeah, the soul does need a body, and if they're doing things in Krishna consciousness the time before, again, things will be arranged. The next body, the physical body that they get, an intelligent one, the human body, so that they can continue where they left off. Yes, we will need a physical body for that. Hare Krishna.
And Vrinda said that the anonymous devotee said that his question was answered. So
Good. Hare Krishna.
we
Glory to Srila Prabhupada.
this devotee. Thank you all so much. I know we went over time, but this was a very, very nice discussion, much needed. Want to thank the devotees for your patience. Vanchakaptibhyascha kripasundabhyo Kalam Parvanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Have a wonderful weekend, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Much
Hare
Mother
Krishna,
Gita.
thank you.
Hare Krishna.